Commissioners. On Tuesday, November 19th, 2024, we'll convene, and I have 4 minutes after 7 or 1904. Okay. So introductions.
Start here.
Karen Hill staff.
Larry Purcell, Mendon.
Laura Black-Shrewsbury.
Sarah Pelkey Pulteney.
Dry Stoddard Danby.
And David Rosenblum, Rutland Town. Mike Hodges, Rutland City.
Erica Burden Wallingford.
Devin Neary, Executive Director.
Jack Schneider, Brandon.
Hey.
Let me go through the list.
Yeah.
From Ira, we have Bob Kerback. From Benson, we have Cheryl Murray. From Wells, we have Heather Thomas. From Fairhaven, we have Jason Kupal. From Mount Holly, we have Jessica Matkev. From Pollitt, we have John Sabaka. From Timoth, we have our newest Board of Commissioner representative, Judy Gilmore. Welcome, Judy.
Thank you.
Really excited to have you on board, and we're so sad at the passing of Bob, but we know we'll be in good hands with you, Judy, so thank you.
I'll do my best.
And then finally, from the town of Hubbardton, we have Bob Gibbs. And then lastly, and very much not least, we have our brand new senior planner, Karima Edwards.
Welcome.
Karima.
Hey, welcome, Karima. We'll try and keep the weather fairly decent for you.
She's already freezing.
You're already freezing.
Got one more. Just
Hey, Liz.
Okay, super. All right, so approval of the November 19th agenda. Any additions, subtractions, changes?
move to approve. Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. We've all had time to review the minutes of the 22nd of October meeting. Are there any changes, additions, typos, subtractions? If not, may I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
May I have a second? Second. Okay, all those in favor of approving the minutes for the 22nd of October meeting, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. How come you always get approval and I never do it?
Yeah.
Okay, so we are open to the public. Do we have any public members? Okay, we're closed to the public. And the September 2024 financial report.
All right, I'll be delivering it tonight for Mary Kay. She is taking some much deserved rest after the audit. Barely at that. So September 2024 financials, the P&L reflects a net income of roughly 155,000. This is high due to ACCD's just gonna mute background noise here. ACD's second quarter invoice in September. The staff is going to be working on a budget update to present to the board in January. This is primarily due to staff changes, with Karima coming on for Greg, being awarded the Work 6 grant, as well as receiving more money through our state ACCD budget for the regional plan and future land use update. On the revenue side, line 402 is low. This is because towns have not yet been invoiced for the FY25 dues. Line 403 is high due to the second quarter invoice from ACCD. Line 403.5, Department of Environmental Conservation is low because we have not yet invoiced for July to September QUISP yet. And we will be invoicing the QUISP Formula 2 grant for the first time in this new billing cycle. Line 404.5, BGS. This is high due to a lot of activity for Act 172 MERP. You probably have heard a lot from Jeremy over the past few months getting those applications in. Line 407 is low US Department of Energy because we have not yet received the grant we've been anticipating. Line 419, local planning assistance. This is a low because again, we're waiting on some new agreements for flood bylaws in the Climate Pollution Reduction Act. Also, state brownfields and transit-oriented development work are expected to ramp up now. On the expense side, 545 subscriptions is high just due to capturing some of our larger subscription services like Adobe and Canva and website hosting. Line 505 is also high because it captures 4 payments through September 30. Accounts receivable as of 9/30 was 387,000. As 11/12, it was 117. And just as a note, as I said earlier, FY24 audit is still in full swing. We have submitted all the necessary components to the auditor, and we are hopefully awaiting results soon. This is the first year we've done a fully remote audit, so it's been a bit of a change for us, but honestly, it's been very helpful to spread it out over a little bit more time. So that is the report.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, yeah, no problem at all.
All right, so we have the executive director's report.
Yeah, you're gonna hear way too much of me tonight, so I apologize, but here we go. So like I said earlier, we have just hired a new senior planner, Karima Edwards. So please help us welcome Karima to the team and help her transition into the region be as smooth as it can. She'll be taking over the Department of Labor Work 6 grant, helping with some town planning, public engagement, and other work. So look forward to seeing her out in the region. And let's see, I already mentioned the audit, so we'll skip ahead of that. One thing about the audit that is important to note is that the results will be in time for our December meeting, which is also our holiday party. So the only action taken in that meeting will just be to certify the audit. No committees, just come ready for a good time. And folks online, if you can try to make it in person, we will have lots of good food and a chance to network with the other commissioners and just rub elbows and enjoy each other's company without me just droning on about boring planning topics. So as a reminder, this is moved up in the schedule to avoid conflicts with the holidays. So this is Monday, December 9th. So please mark your calendars, invite planning commission chairs, select board chairs from your communities, town managers. We'd like to have a big group. I'm going to be sending out an email invite to those folks and you all probably tomorrow. And we'll have a little RSVP to try to get a gauge on the head count, but please come if you can, because we'd love to see you all in person.
What's the time of that?
That's gonna be 6 o'clock, so a little earlier.
We have an executive finance before that.
We will, yes, probably for like half an hour, maybe 45 minutes. All right, so a lot of new grant opportunities, and I just wanted to mention these verbally so it really sinks in, we all are aware. Better Roads Grant Program, categories B, C's, and D's, those are out there. These are our bread and butter for complying with the municipal roads general permit. Those applications, unfortunately, are due 2 days after Christmas. Who picked that date? I do not know. But contact our transportation planner, Ethan Pepin, for assistance. 2 other transportation-related programs. One is TAP, the Transportation Alternatives Program. That is for planning and construction projects due December 31st of this year. Also, Municipal Highway and Stormwater Mitigation Grant Program. All of you that submitted culvert projects to the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program and got denied, which is everyone in the state, here's a good chance to fill that cup and potentially do some culvert projects. Recreational Trails Program, the pre-application is due 12/6. This is probably the best funding source out there for trails development Land and Water Conservation Fund, that is a great recreation program. Those are due 12/13 for pre-apps. Another FEMA program, instead of hazard mitigation grants, the SWIFT current program. That's really about elevation and flood proofing projects due mid-January. And then lastly, still no dates on the municipal planning grant. They're switching over to a new system away from Gears, so we can all celebrate that because Gears is awful. And apparently this will be way more user-friendly for grant administration in the state. More good news, MERP awards have been announced. Well, good for some of you. There's some, sorry. So congrats to the towns of Benson, Brandon, Chittenden, Fairhaven, Middletown, Mount Tabor, Pollitt, Pulteney, Town and Village, and West Haven. All of you will be receiving large scale construction grants, and Jeremy will be reaching out, working with your towns. The biggest thing is the agreements have to come back to BGS by 12/16. This is a super important date not to miss because of the federal ARPA rules. So if you are one of those towns, you're not sure what to do, please reach out to our energy planner, Jeremy. Future land use map update. So we're going to go over this in much greater detail in January. But starting in January, we will begin updating the regional future land use map as part of the 2026 regional plan and to align it with the new Act 181 requirements. So we're going to be holding meetings with every single town in the region. Ideally, these meetings would be with both select boards and planning commissions. But we, and what you'll see later in my presentation on the regional plan, have to have this future land use map done by June. Done by June. So that's 6 months, not a ton of time. But we can do it and we will do it. So more to come on that. Lastly, I just want to say a big thank you to all of you who completed the BAFTA assessment survey that I sent out last month and the month prior. One survey went out to town officials, another survey went out to you all as commissioners. And I'm super proud to say that we had by far the most responses of any other RPC in the state. And that is super encouraging. I think it says a lot about our relationship with the towns. I don't know what it says, so it could be a lot of bad, but that would be okay. I will gladly accept that criticism and we'll use it to refine our processes. Why this I think is important is when we get the assessment back from the consultant on statewide RPCs, I would like to use that to help focus and inform a future organizational strategic plan. Our last strategic plan for the RPC dates all the way back to 2013. And I read through it the other day and I think it's due for an update. There's a lot of things that just don't apply anymore. So ideally, that would be something guided with a strategic planner and include the Board of Commissioners. So we'll talk more about that. It feels like right now we really need to focus on the regional plan before we jump into something like this. Any questions?
Okay, so speaking of the regional plan and jumping into it, let's do it.
Yeah. So quick regional plan report, not a whole lot of updates here. We kicked off Task 3 Rev 1, which is the second draft of the plan yesterday. And we made a lot of changes to the drafting and adoption schedule, and we'll go over exactly what that is and why in the presentation next. Again, big shout out to the Regional Plan Committee reviewing all 10 chapters. That was awesome. Engagement. We still have 2 weeks left of the survey, and we don't have a ton of responses, but the responses we've gotten are good. So if you can help continue to push that out, that'd be great. We just did another push on Front Porch Forum. Hopefully you all saw that. Facebook, newsletters, all that stuff went out. We've completed our presentations and select boards. We've completed our pop-up events. We hosted our second public feedback session, which went well. More people turned up for that one. And we're beginning to have the first full draft in layout form with our graphic designer. So we'll be excited to share what that looks like with you all. A lot more compelling than a white and black Word doc. So it's exciting. That's all I've got. Any updates or any questions on the regional plan?
Okay, now let's go into the regional plan.
Wow, I was not lying. I am going to be doing a lot of talking tonight. So let me share my screen here. I'll say every time we do it. Okay, so this is really intended to be a follow-up to our policy review last meeting. So I want to start by saying thank you for providing that feedback last meeting. I would have liked to have heard from more different voices in that meeting, but it's tough with this many members. I get it. I think some of the feedback was really useful, other feedback not as much. And I think what it really made me understand is that maybe we need to sort of walk back and do some education as to what is actually required to be in the regional plan. Because I think a lot of the conversation last meeting was sort of philosophical differences over some of the policies in the plan, when those policies really represent statutory requirements for the regional plan. So let's sort of look at this from the 30,000 foot view, dating all the way back from sort of when we started this process. So I'm going to go through a number of things tonight. The purpose, the duties, the goals, and the elements as they were when we started this plan. So some of the things I'm going to go over tonight, and only there's a few things that have been updated since July. The updates we're going to focus on in January, but I want you to see where we started this plan. Most of the things tonight that are going to be presented are still the same as they were before. However, there have been some critical additions based on climate change, equity, and the future land use stuff. So that is really going to be the focus of January. So before that, though, I want to really get back to sort of basics. Why are we writing this regional plan? What is required? And really, what is the commission's role in this huge plan development process? So let's talk about the purpose of the regional plan. Regional plan really should be focusing on guiding and accomplishing coordinated, efficient, and economic development in the region. We have really focused on that coordinated and efficient economic development as a core tenet in our plan. And every chapter we're constantly asking as we're developing the plan, how does this relate to community and economic development? So there are many purposes of the regional plan that really speak to present and future needs, present and future resources, present and future land uses. And that needs to be the core of this plan and really concentrate on efficiency, the economy, and general sort of population dynamics throughout the region. There are 6 tenets, now 7, of that purpose. And they really relate to pretty broad categories. You know, these really kind of are meaningless on their own until we attach them to the state planning goals. But part of it is creating favorable conditions for health, transportation, safety, educational, career stuff, reducing waste and being efficient, and trying to reduce congestion and sprawl, promoting efficient utilization of all our sort of core utilities and facilities like wastewater, water, energy, promoting conservation of all of our natural resources, including our mineral resources, of which we've talked about. 50% of Vermont's mineral resources come from our region. Promote the production of food and fiber resources. So really our working landscapes. And obviously that's a deep connection to our region. And then promote sustainable housing. So what's the duty of the regional commission in this whole thing? Well, I cherry picked two pieces on purpose. And I think one speaks to sort of what we're here as a regional planning commission to do. And that's this delicate balance of you're here to represent your towns, but you're also here to think about the region as a whole. And sometimes that benefits the town, sometimes it doesn't, but generally balancing that is really difficult. And promoting that mutual cooperation of municipalities is the number one duty of a regional planning commission. That's a broad statement because it can mean facilities, utilities, it can mean planning, economic development. But at its core, I think that's really what an RPC is and does, is in the absence of county government, it is the glue between these disparate towns in a region and the state of Vermont. So I think that's really how we need to approach reviewing this plan as best we can is, yes, provide that representation, a municipal perspective, but also we are the only body able to and responsible for advocating for the region as a whole. The other duty is what we're doing now, which is preparing the regional plan and really preparing the regional plan with the state planning goals as the focus, which is section 4302. All these references up here are chapters 117 and 24 VSA of the state code. So you under chapter 117 is all municipal and regional planning, and it has a lot of these core things. Heather, I see you have a hand. Why don't we go to you before I switch to the next slide?
Yeah, I was just trying to find the article on Vermont Public, but a couple of weeks ago on Vermont Public, they were talking about sort of shifting the governance model in the state. And just to go back to the promoting the mutual cooperation of the municipalities in your comment that, kind of like with the lack of county government, what kind of shift would there be in our duties and roles if that were to come to pass, I guess. I'm not sure if
Yeah, so what Heather's referring to is there is a legislative study happening on regional governance in Vermont. There's a working group. We have a representation from the RPCs on that working group, Chris Campany from Wyndham Region. And they're really discussing all options at this point. That report's not due until the end of 2025. That could change what we do here. It could amplify it. It could completely eliminate it. I highly doubt that because we're in statute. One model that could potentially work is a COG model, Council on Governments, which is sort of a blend of regional planning and regional governance without actually having any county taxes or regional taxes. The council is made up of the select board chairs from all the region's towns, but that's a much further off question, Heather, and I appreciate bringing that up. In the meantime, I think this is really that entity that serves as that municipal glue. So 4302, state planning goals. This is something that is the cornerstone for the regional plan. And this is what we absolutely have to have in a regional plan. And what you'll probably notice, hopefully, many of you serve on your municipal planning commissions. These are the same planning goals for your town plan and requirements to be in your town plan as well. Now, the regional plan typically has some greater requirements, but in terms of the state planning goals, they're all in line. So just like your municipal plan, the regional plan, they have to have these 14 state planning goals, but we have an opportunity to sort of customize those goals around our own. So before we get into those goals, let's just talk about the sort of specific duties and general duties as it relates to this plan. The number one is develop and carry out a process that will encourage and enable widespread citizen involvement. I think we can start to check that one off. We have done more engagement with this regional plan than ever before, and perhaps more than any other region to date. Regional database is compatible with, shared with the geographic information system. Yep, we're sort of the GIS folks for the region. Capacity studies where appropriate. We've done this. We've created housing needs assessment for the region. Identify areas of regional significance. This will be most important with our future land use mapping, but especially as it relates to natural resources and the economy. And then, social, economic benefits, and really at the end, we need to be able to prove when we submit this plan and have our first public hearing, what's required with that first public hearing is a report outlining exactly how we met the state planning goals and what we've changed in the plan, which is, it's gonna be a long list because we're planning to change most everything because it's been such a long time. So let's talk about those state planning goals, because this, again, is sort of the backbone of the plan. And I think you'll notice something interesting about these state planning goals as it relates to our regional plan goals. And that is the state planning goals, after these four general ones, when we get into the actual planning elements, are the goals of the regional plan chapters. And we did that intentionally. One, to make sure that this plan passes muster, but more importantly, that we front and center those planning goals and then justify why throughout. So the broad goals for state planning is a planning process and a framework to guide decisions. This is what we do at the regional committee earlier, right? The community committee when reviewing town plans. It is sort of that formal framework. It's also encouraging citizen participation, not only in this regional plan rewrite, but throughout all of our work, especially as it relates to the goals and actions. And really the forefront is that land use component, how we're using our resources, how we're planning for growth and development. And then lastly, kind of goes right back to that purpose, encouraging municipalities to work collectively. And this is something we're constantly trying to do and work on. And I think it's a state of evolution, definitely. So here we are. We're to the main goals, and I'm not going to go through the sub goals. Hopefully you had a chance to review these. They are available online. Starts with land use, no surprise. Just like our chapter, our regional plan starts with land use because that sets the stage for everything. And land use really divides where there's conservation and where there's growth. So the state planning goal, plan development to maintain historic settlement patterns of compact village and urban centers separated by rural countryside. This was a little contentious last meeting. And I was surprised because this is probably the oldest state planning goal we have and really speaks to smart growth and efficiency. And frankly, this is how Vermont was formed. All of these little hamlets and towns around critical economic resources and housing resources. Yeah, we've spread out, we've grown since then, but more than ever, and Act 250 is even really pursuing this, is that the big development should happen in those areas. Where I think we get a little awry is when we think this means no development anywhere else. That's not the case, right? If we're talking about 9,000 or more housing units needed in Rutland County by 2050, that's not going to just be our urban centers and compact villages. It can't. We literally do not have enough space. So yes, there will be housing in the rural countryside. There will be development and small business in the rural countryside as well, but not at the expense of forest blocks and critical natural resources or ag land, right? So this is that constant balance of, okay, we want to develop within our planned growth areas, but they can't fit everything. So how do we protect those resources? How do we grow the economy and the housing stock? That is like one of the core points of this whole plan and the future land use map. Second is pretty simple and really needed, especially on the diverse side, is providing for a strong and diverse economy. You know, our economy has drastically changed over the last 30 years in the region. However, we still have a lot of great industry here, employment opportunities, and we have a lot of incredible small businesses. 1,500 of our 2,000 businesses have less than 5 people. How can we create this plan that not only supports the GEs and the Killingtons, but the smallest mom and pop shops all the way down through? Because I'm very concerned that those small shops are being left out of the conversation, and globalization and all the rest is sort of making it very untenable, but that is like the economic fabric of our region. Next is broadening access to education and vocational training. I think this plan, we are really hyper-focused on that second part, vocational training, and knowing that the trades and local industry is really significantly impacted by a lack of technical center training in our region. We have one of the best technical centers in the state, maybe even the New England, but we have limited space. So how can we start to plan for a transition to more of those opportunities? And then providing safe, convenient, economic, and energy efficient transportation systems. That's a mouthful, but we really got into this last meeting. It's all modes. And yes, we're not saying you can't drive your car with a combustion engine. That's never going to be the case. The regional plan cannot tell you to not own a car. However, combustion engine cars have been the dominant force for 60 years. They're good. That's happening. How can we plan for those other modes for choice users and more efficiency, especially commuters? We have one of the longest average commuting times in the state, and the broader New England area, close to 28 minutes. So really it's about how we can plan for all types. And there's specific language in here about public transit and bicycle and pedestrian traffic, but that's not it. That's not just it, sorry. The next one is really very closely aligned with land use, and that is protecting, preserving important natural and historical features. So this blends 2 of our chapters. We have our cultural resources chapter that is really our scenic, archaeological, historical resources. And then we'll have our natural resources and working lands chapter that really speak to those critical natural resources, our habitat connectors, our forest blocks, and bigger state level initiatives that, whether we agree with them philosophically or not, are state statute until they change. If ever, we have to plan around them, like the 30 by 30 or the 50 by 50 or the Staying Connected initiative. It's not to say that it's a one or the other. We can have both. We do have both now. So trying to maintain that perspective of if we do really put a premium on natural resources, which we do in our survey from phase 1, the number 1 feedback was we need to protect the natural landscape and still develop jobs and housing and all the rest, but like that's what makes Vermont. Next is really like those core elements of natural resources, which are air, water, wildlife, forests, in land resources. That's pretty self-explanatory, making sure that we have clean air, clean water, and sufficient space and habitat for our wildlife, which is also a core economic resource. Now, this is a state planning goal around energy. However, there are additional requirements for our energy chapter to be considered that enhanced energy plan. So we can certify town energy plans. However, it still goes back to this main planning goal, which is efficient use of energy and development of renewable energy resources, and ultimately trying to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. There's a lot of ways we can do this. And again, this chapter by far seems to be the most contentious, because I feel like people are very worried that they're going to have their wood stove taken away. They're not going to be allowed to do certain things. That's not the case. Certainly not now. Hopefully not ever. But certainly this plan is not going to tell, Johnny B in Benson that he can't have his wood stove anymore. A lot of people have it. However, this plan is a way for folks who want to transition to meet our climate action goals and our comprehensive energy goals, and providing options, just like the transportation chapter. Here are options in which you can take to make us reach our goals, or to help us reach our goals. This one's a little bit more fun. Recreational opportunities for Vermont's residents and visitors. I think in reimagining the Rutland region economy, especially in places like Olney, this is a huge opportunity. We have some of the best lakes in the region, trails. We need to be doing a much better job as a regional planning commission, providing regional planning for recreation. I think right now it's very much like town, do what you can. But I think one of the actions out of our plan will hopefully be creating a regional recreation plan. Working lands, strengthening ag and forest industries, not an easy thing to do, especially agriculture. However, our plan really needs to have strong language about where and when we can really enhance and preserve agriculture. Whether that's diversifying farm industry, creating new industries, and protecting those and preserving those ag lands that exist now. Next one is pretty similar. It's about wise and efficient use of Vermont's natural resources. For us, this really comes down to our mineral extraction, slate, and marble, and crushed stone and gravel where possible. Big one, safe and affordable housing for all Vermonters. And I think what I really pick up on here is all Vermonters, in that we are losing a lot of our population who can't afford to live here because of the housing prices. And we were just having a great discussion earlier in regional committee how the average housing development in the region is about 50 units per year. And with the Act 250 reform, already we have 3 projects that we just discussed totaling 75 units that will not have to go through Act 250 in Brandon and Rutland City. So maybe we can start to chip away at this huge housing glut we have in a way that really encourages more of our younger folks to stay and retain some of that new workforce. Public utilities and facilities and services, planning for financing and providing efficient systems. This is huge. Our wastewater systems, our water systems, public safety. We just talked about in my report, $3 million coming in the region for energy efficiency upgrades for municipal buildings. That's the type of things we need to be really concentrating on this plan, is reducing the cost for municipalities, especially, frankly, rural, smaller municipalities. And how can we come up with inventive ways to do that? Because frankly, the cost of some of these infrastructure projects is out of control. If Judy Frazier were on from Proctor, she would tell you their lagoon project alone, which is just replacing their wastewater lagoons, is $5.5 million. Proctor cannot afford to do that. Next is childcare. Oh, this is a big one. The state Universal Child Care Act says that we need 3,300 new childcare workers in the state just to meet the current and future demand. Rutland County is even far behind that figure. So this is another area that the Regional Planning Commission hasn't done a lot with, but could potentially do a lot more in, is trying to help plan for more childcare center growth, especially as it relates to businesses and employment centers. Lastly, encourage flood resilient communities. So you'll probably notice this particular goal we did change. This is the only goal we changed in our plan. And we have our chapters, or our goal is to encourage climate resilient communities, because flooding is not the only impact anymore. Heat, ice, flooding, all of those sort of significant natural hazards are really creating, costing quite a bit of money in the region and creating a lot of damage. So this will be a really important piece of the plan to highlight. And right now, our current plan is really insufficient in this area. Those are the state planning goals. That was a lot, 14 of them. Any questions? Hopefully none of them are new, but maybe in the context of a regional plan versus a town plan, they feel a little bit different.
I mean, I like the overview, but really appreciate you digging deep into, what the state's looking for and why we have to make decisions around the guidelines that they're providing. And I mean, as part of the bigger process, I appreciate the direction that your staff is going to try to find those results. Thank you.
Okay. I'm gonna try to cruise through this one because there's a lot of writing, and really it just comes down to, okay, statutorily, you have to have a plan. It has to include the state planning goals. And then there's very specific elements that have to be in that plan. And you'll probably pick up quite quickly that our chapters are the elements. That's what we try to do. So it needs to be consistent with the planning goals, 4302. It has to have policies. That's what we went over last time. And we will be starting to update those now with our next draft. We have to have that land use element with the future land use map. We have to have our special areas designated, like ag, forestry, natural resources, floodplains, river corridors, those designations like our village centers. Significant regional impact. We just went over this a little bit in our regional committee. We have to define what significant regional impact is. Why do we have to define it? Because it gives us a seat at the table when reviewing and commenting on Act 250 applications. Right now, our definition is quite small and narrow, and we're looking for opportunities to maybe broaden that in very specific ways. We have to have our land uses that really focus on those present and future land uses, our working lands, our forest blocks, which is part of natural resources, an energy chapter, which we're going to actually have an enhanced energy chapter like we do now, our transportation component, facilities and utilities, natural resources, housing, economic development, and flood resilience, which we're calling climate resilience. The implementation, which you're going to see is a way different approach with this plan. We want to make this plan actionable. The other plan has no real actions associated with it. Actually, if you read the plan as it is now, all the actions are exactly the same. And they all are regional coordination with municipalities, yada, yada. It's a little blurb. Every single chapter the exact same. This time we want to develop an implementation matrix where it says, How long is it gonna take? How much effort? Who's gonna do it and by when? So we can actually make ourselves accountable with this plan as to say, hey, we said we were gonna do X by 2029. Why didn't we do it? And as a way to measure that, our actions are gonna have indicators of progress with this plan. How did we achieve that goal and to what end? And then lastly, and it's just a weird requirement, we have to have this chapter in there that says, how does this plan relate to the other regions around us? All the other regions have to do it. It's kind of a weird thing, but that's what it is. So this is, if you've been sleeping up till now, fine. Please wake up. This is the important part. Updated timeline. So as part of Act 181 that was passed in July or in late June, there's been some significant changes to how regional plans are adopted. So before, you were the only group that needed to approve a regional plan, which has been awesome. You still do with this regional plan. However, the new Land Use Resource Board, which was the Natural Resource Board, the NRB, when we submit this plan, they have to approve it, which is new and a little frightening, but also hopefully we will have no problem meeting their requirements because we are, as I sort of described in laying out the statutes, we are trying to make sure we hit every mark exactly and have no ambiguity about it. So what does this mean? So 60 days before our first public hearing, we have to submit a draft to the Land Use Resource Board and 5 other state agencies for review. That's a totally new thing. And then after we go through the first hearing, the second hearing, and adopt the plan, that same Land Use Resource Board has to approve the plan within 15 days. If they say, hey, Rutland, your plan doesn't meet the mark, we have 18 months to get it up to snuff. So that's a little saving grace. However, this compressed our timeline dramatically because now we have 75 days. We have the 60 days for the warning, and we gave ourselves another 15 days to sort of like modify the plan if there is feedback. That's compressing our timeline. However, I think you'll be really excited to know that in our update of the timeline, we focus on one thing and one thing only, getting you all complete drafts to review more times than what we had previously proposed. So let's take a look. So right now, yesterday, we kicked off the next draft of the regional plan. We're going to be doing that drafting period will go from now until January 17th. And at the January 21st meeting, I'm going to send you all the complete draft. And you will have a full month to review that draft. And in February, during my vacation, mind you, I'm going to join online and we're going to talk about that regional plan. Now, we don't have to get it all done in the meeting. I don't expect we will. So I want folks to email, provide the comments. We'll set up a way for you all to do that efficiently. So in February, we're going to talk about it. We are then in March, April, and May going to go back and do 2 more complete drafts based on the feedback you provided us. And then in June, at our annual meeting, we're going to present the second full draft. This will be actually our 3rd full draft, but for your purposes, it'll be the second time you're seeing the complete draft. After June, we take a summer break, right? So during that summer break, we're going to take all your comments from that second draft review in June, and we're going to complete a final draft, and hopefully we're going to have time for professional editing. It's really compressed. We're going to need an editor to do it in 30 days, so we may not be able to find one. We can always do it after if we need to. So that means September, we're going to push back our board meeting a week, and we're going to meet on September 30th, 2025 for an adoption vote. So by September 30, of this year of 2025 to make sure that we do not have an expired plan, we need the board to adopt the plan at this meeting. That's before our hearing process is, right? So once you adopt, we then have that land use resource board 60-day here notice. So we send it off. They review it. They provide us some comments, hopefully very little. So then we have a 30-day notice for our first public hearing. We are not doing just one hearing. We are going to be teaming up with several of you to hold in-person hearings in your communities and then have a full hybrid hearing here at the office as well to try to provide as many opportunities as possible. So you'll be getting it in January, you'll be getting it in June, you'll be getting it in September, and then you'll be part of those hearings in January, and then again in March. So we have that first public hearing in January 20th. In February, we might make changes, so we'll bring them back to you and say, hey, based on the first public hearing, this is what we heard, this is what we think should change. You guys look at it, and then finally, the final draft comes before the board in April. And I just want to make it perfectly clear, if we do not want an expired plan, which we desperately don't, we've never had that, we need to adopt the final draft at the April 21st public hearing, which will be our second hearing and our final hearing. So why, you might be like, wait, our current plan is June 18th, 2018. We have 2 more months. Well, with regional plans, 35 days after your final public hearing is when the plan takes effect. So this gives us just a few days of wiggle room in there if we had to make any sort of changes. However, at that point, we really can't. At that point, after that second hearing, it's adopted. 35 days later, we have a new plan. That's a lot. However, I hope you are pleasantly surprised that you're getting this plan in January, in June, in September, again during the hearing, again in February, and again at the final hearing. So 5 times versus, I think we had it in there like 2 times. And that was in response to that last meeting we had. We want this to be, we want to get to April, and you all as commissioners are like, we've got the best damn plan in the state. We are 100% ready to adopt. We feel great about it. And it really reflects all our communities and our priorities. Thoughts, questions?
Who makes up the land use resource board?
Yeah, so the governor appoints, but it's a 5-member board, and they just went through a very exhaustive interview process. There's certain sectors that they have to represent, like law and land and conservation. I can't remember all the pieces, but it's state level board, and ultimately the governor has the say so on who gets in.
They're not formed yet, and when will they be?
I believe they have to be formed by January 1. And criteria around how they even review our plan, we don't know, not yet. So that's something they have to develop over 2025. Same with the agencies reviewing our plan. We're actually sending our drafts to the agencies already to sort of prep for this. But we have no idea. I don't think the agencies can say yay or nay. They can just provide feedback.
Which agencies are you sending it to?
I don't have the full list in front of you. It's like Department of Housing and Community Development, Vermont Agency of Transportation,
Basically,
A&R.
ANR, Agency of Natural Resources, AHS, 1 or 2 others. Yeah.
How many other regions are due at the same time as ours?
Great question, Liz. So because of this Act 181 stuff, every single regional planning commission in the entire state has to have an updated plan by the end of 2026. So in my conversations with the other regional planning commissions, all of them are planning to submit around the same time we are.
So that committee's gonna have big.
Oh, there's,
Oh,
I mean, can you imagine 300-page regional plans and you have 11 of them? Yeah. God.
Are they
God have
paid?
mercy. Huh?
Are they?
They are paid and they're paid well. So I'm not feeling too bad about it.
That's interesting because then they're set up, everyone's gonna be in the same rotation, so.
We are.
Yeah.
Did the next.
However, some
8 years.
RPCs, they're 8 years. Some RPCs like tinker every couple of years. I would like a nice long break after this one.
Really?
What?
Oh,
Yeah,
I was just gonna say we get to see a draft of it
Yeah.
sooner,
me too.
just to like start digesting it.
Mhm. Yeah, it's hard, in retrospect, maybe the policies weren't the right way to go about it. It doesn't give any context behind why or what this means or the actions behind it. So I'm excited for you guys to see the full plan. We will not be giving you the data visualization components because they won't be fully formed yet. That'll come later, but that's a huge component to the story and the reason behind some of the decisions. So you will get that full in layout form in June, which is nice.
Which is when we originally were gonna get.
Yes.
Anyway.
So at least this way you'll get it in a different form.
Back to the timeline, so the first public hearings, those are the ones that you wanna go to the small communities?
Mhm.
Whether they're groups of municipalities or one.
I think we'd
Is
hold
that
it.
just, pardon?
I think we'd hold it in a town, in a sort of sub-region. So like hold it in Danby and then Brandon and then, Mendon. Yeah.
I would think so too. So, but we will just do one of the second public hearing, would you do that again, or is that just gonna be?
I think we would like to. Yeah, but ultimately that second public hearing on the 21st has to accompany a vote. So we may have to sort of like, we may have to adjust, actually, no, we have 30 days. Yes, we can do that and we will do that. Multiple meetings for the second hearing too. I mean, ultimately, when the board votes, it'll be here in a hybrid session.
Yeah.
But it would be great to just culminate with that final hearing. So having a couple in-persons, then a hybrid at the end. How are folks feeling? Encouraged?
my ears are tired.
I know, my
He's not done.
voices are tired.
How's your voice?
Yeah, it's feeling good. It's feeling good. And hey, I think the big thing about this plan to sort of know is that we're trying as hard as we can to make it comply with state statute, but also be reflective of the region in our priorities, which is why we've been doing so much outreach with this plan. So do not be afraid at any point. If you have a question or a concern, call me, email me, let's have a conversation. Okay.
Well, you answered a question the select board asked me last night, was who approves the regional plan besides the commissioners? Now I can go back and tell them.
Yeah, for the first time ever. Normally it's just you guys. Yeah.
Okay, any questions? Further discussion? Right, then the Executive Finance Committee report.
Yeah, the Executive Finance Committee met on November 12th, last Tuesday. No action taken.
Was it just last week?
I know. You guys are spending way too much time here.
Okay, then the Regional Committee.
So the regional committee tonight reviewed 2 Section 248 applications. One in Brennan that was previously reviewed and approved by the regional committee earlier this year. And it was the developer SolarFest reached out to the RPC asking for a letter requesting the conformance with the regional plan from the committee. So the regional committee approved that this evening. And the other section 248 application was in Rutland Town. It's a 500 kilowatt solar array near Prior Lane. We reviewed the site plan, aerial 45 days notice, application materials, and we are recommending to the full board to send a letter to the developer citing the regional plans, regional and community standards, which are primarily in conformance except for one. Potentially is not in conformance. It's item 13 regarding clearing in the project. So that was the section 248 applications. Act 250, we reviewed the Pittsford Village Farm application, which were interior renovations, additions, site improvements. No action was taken by the committee. And as Devin mentioned earlier, we talked a bit about the Act 250 housing exemptions and recent jurisdictional opinions in Brandon, Rutland City, and Rutland City. The committee also started to talk about the significant regional impact of the regional plan, as Devin described. So,
Okay, so we need a motion to approve your recommendation for the letters as suggested.
yeah, please.
Okay, and I have a motion to accept the recommendations of the regional committee in terms of the letters.
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, any opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. Transportation Advisory Committee report.
Yeah, in October, they had a visitor from V-Trans discussing an update to the Vermont Rail Plan and a corridor ID program. And then tomorrow, right? There's a joint meeting with Addison County Regional Planning Commission to talk about interregional projects and issues. Similar to a couple of years ago when we did this, I think a lot of the focus will be on Vermont Route 22A and some of the issues around that roadway project. So it should be a great meeting.
Super. All right, regional partners.
I don't think anyone's on tonight.
Don't see anybody. Okay. Ex officio members.
Lyle said he couldn't make it.
Okay. Commissioner roundtable, any discussions, anything any commissioner wants to bring up?
Any hot goss from the towns?
Last night Ed Bogue was approved as our new planning. and zoning
Oh, nice.
administrator, so-
Congrats.
So that'd be great. So you'll see Ed back.
Love that. Although you can't leave as.
Oh, I'm not going anywhere. But you'll see him around.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
A quick question before we move on from the subject. So for the new members in the past, remember we had done that sort of like, we went around the room and everyone sort of said, this is what's happening in my town. It took a long time and a lot of folks, I don't know, loved it. So we proposed this commissioner roundtable thing. It sort of ebbed and flowed. We've been sort of skipping it for the last couple meetings. Do folks want some opportunity to sort of dive into something that is town specific? Because frankly, I am just talking way too much in these meetings. Is this something you want? And is there value in it?
Yeah, it goes back to the original, why Act 250 happened. So one town knows what's going on in the next town.
Yeah.
And it could bring up, the roundtable could bring up regional issues.
Yeah.
So I think it would be a good thing.
So do you want me to just come up with a random topic month to month? And if we have things to say about it, we can? Or would love this, you probably won't. That each commissioner could sort of be the round table facilitator month to month. And let's say Liz next month is like, hey, we're redoing our town plan. I want to talk for 15 minutes about town plan updates.
And what other people can just like, I can just have a question. Does anyone want to give me?
Yeah, advice or
Yeah.
awful thing that happened or something like that.
It could
And
be,
anyone
yeah.
wants to share?
Yeah,
share.
tips and
Could
tricks.
be any kind of plant problem you had.
Any
right?
problem.
And
Yeah, maybe you just wanna like brag about a really cool project in town or
ask if anybody else's battles of land use.
yes, any like new future land use battles in towns.
Or it was it last year, there were like 5 fatal accidents between Rutland and Killington
Yeah,
on Route 4.
yeah,
And that could be a
right.
good discussion.
What do folks online think? Is this something you like? You're indifferent about?
Carol?
Yeah, I kind of like it because it's a long ways for us to drive into Rutland to go to the meetings.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
You know, so the virtual thing is a lot easier for me to attend, but it's also the only way I get to hear what's going on in other towns. At least for the more outlying towns, I think it's kind of cool.
So is that you volunteering to take next month?
Have you seen my volunteer list lately?
Well, I could start at the beginning of the alphabet, which is Benson, or we could start at the
True,
end.
then I could get my stint over with. I started this meeting 10 minutes after I finished an auditor's meeting, so.
Oh my God, you're a saint. Thank you.
And I have my planning commission coming up too, so, but yeah, I mean, I think we're all working at different stages of working on different things. I mean, there's some towns that are working on town plans, some towns that are working on zoning, some towns are working on roads.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
I think we have plenty to throw out there is all I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to find more opportunities for you all to be able to collaborate because you're right. Every one of you is a Cheryl in 10 different boards. You all just said, oh, I got to go to this one and this one and this one, which I really respect, but also are we missing out on something by not sharing that? So what I can do is I can get with a new commissioner each month and we can have a little meeting, a little chat about what we could talk about and we'll go from there. How does that sound?
Especially town plans, because how many of us are doing town plans or soon?
I think there's 6 of you.
Well, yeah, 7, because Wallingford's gotta have it.
I have to start on.
Oh yeah, you got your vote thing.
Yeah, we have Australian ballot. So that puts a different,
Way down on that.
yeah, that puts a different spin. So, all right, well, then I will talk about one topic on the commissioners roundtable, and I am bragging. Speaking of Australian ballot, our zoning regulations, after 7 years of 28 versions of rewrites, got approved.
That's municipal persistence at its finest.
Yes,
Nice way to say it.
yes. But the interesting thing is, if you go to the statute as to how long it takes before approval and when it's enacted, there's no mention of Australian ballot.
No,
So we don't know if it was approved immediately or if we have to wait 45 days
or 21 days.
or
Yeah.
21 days. So anybody have that answer? I will take it. VCLT is what? So,
Oh, they didn't know?
no,
Oh, boy.
No, no.
That's who we pushed it to, so.
yeah, I know.
We need a lawyer on staff. Grandma?
I pushed it to Logan and Logan said, yeah, check with VCLT. So we're gonna push it over there. We'll see what happens. But yes, I think a topic that we're all kind of involved with, especially with town plans and the new regs, I think it's gonna be great.
Yeah,
So-
the document that you made is really good.
The town planning guide? Yeah, that's all Logan.
That was really good.
All right, any other comments? Additions, subtractions, deletions?
Heather, yes, you will see it. You're on my list to be reaching out. The town plan guide hasn't made its full debut yet. We're still making a few last weeks. That's why you can't sign it. but she's seen like one module of it.
Oh.
There's like it's like a 25
Oh.
page.
Well, I like the part I saw.
Oh, there's more, just you wait,
There.
there's more.
Well, we
Yeah.
can only have a little at a time.
Super. Okay, so unless there's any other business, then I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And so we are adjourned at 14 minutes after 8 o'clock.
Wow.
35 minutes early. Thank you all so much. Good to see you.
We made it up last week.
We'll see you on the night.
You.
Holiday season, don't forget.
And everybody have a great Thanksgiving.
Sliding off.